Okay, people, I'm going to show you why hot glue is not just for gluing crafts. This is the thing the hot glue gun came in. You see that? And I need a door stop. So what I'm going to do is the front part, where the front part of this is about back to there on its container, I am just going to squeeze some glue in there, like so. And just fill this part up with the hot glue. All the way back to about here. And that will give me my door stop part. I need another one. I gotta get some of these out. And it's gonna take several of these hot glue bits and whatnot and pieces to get it filled up. These hot glue sticks. You better believe. But when you're done filling this section up, and I'm not going to fill the center real high, just the sides. I'm going to leave the center kind of hollow. The only place I'm going to fill up completely is this part here. This is the only place I'm going to fill up completely. Otherwise, the sides here are going to be basically about a little bit thick. Make them a little bit thick, and then make sure you fill up here to make a solid top, because we're going to want that solid top for something. Okay? I'm going to pause you for a little while because I need a glass of water. Okay, I've gotten my glass of water, and it's sitting right here. Now, the reason why you want that glass of water is because once you get this as full as you want it, to make it flat, don't let it sit too long. Dip your finger into the water and then run it along the top of the glue. The water will stop the glue from sticking to you. And depending how cold you've got the water, depends how fast that glue will set up in there. So when you've got it to where you want it, you just take your finger and put it in the water and then make the shape you want with the glue. And that's going to be important for the outer decoration that I'm going to do on my new door stop. So now I want this outer edge to come up a little bit. I want that to come up about like you've got your sides here. Your sides are all evened out there, and they're stuck up on the top, and they're a little bit thicker so that they'll hold the weight of the door so that it doesn't collapse. You don't want it to collapse. Now take your finger, dip it in, and push it onto the glue. You want the outer edges to be about like so thick. And just make your outer edges dip your finger and bring it onto the glue. And then that way they won't collapse. When the door goes pressing on it. Now with the back part here, you want to put a bunch of glue in there. Dip your first finger and your thumb into the water, and then take the end of that and pinch it up You got to make sure you get your thumb and your finger really wet. But pinch it up. Pinch it up. Let's see if I can make it so you see how I'm pinching that up? Make my back wall and just pinch that up and then flatten out the top part of it. And that will make the back side of your wall. Just pinch it up. And it basically, putting your fingers into the cold water, first of all, cools down the hot glue a little bit quicker. So you got to work with it fast. So first of all, it cools down the hot glue a little bit faster. And secondly, it makes it so that you can work the hot glue as if it were clay and not hot glue. So there you go. And then you get your shape for your, this will be the bottom part that fits on the floor. And this here, back here, once it's out of here, will be your top part that ends up having whatever decoration you create on it. So that's the start of that. So now I'm gonna put this on pause and finish up what I'm gonna do with this, and then show you the shape after it's pulled out. And then we'll start creating my decoration on it. Okay, I've got my shape. Now what you're gonna want to do to pull this out, first grab a pair of scissors, cut behind where your piece is, just like so. Just roughly cut it out so it's easy to handle. Just like so. And as you can see, it's stuck in there pretty good. So cut lines up to each side. Just like so. And just cut those lines. That's where you're going to make lines into this material here. And you're going to take, now an X-Acto knife would work well for this. But you're just going to take and come up and fit your blade up underneath where that is, where the edge is here. Just get it up underneath there and kind of score it. And then take and rip off, and then just, and start from the back, because then you can slip the blade up underneath the hot glue. And it's going to be difficult to do. This is not going to be like you're going to just pop it off. You put hot glue in there, dear. You're not going to just pop it off. Wherever you can cut off, which will make your edges a little bit better. You could also just cut the edges off of this and leave this plastic piece on the top. But to me, that plastic piece up here is too smooth. The glue stuff has kind of a grip to it, which you definitely want this to be the bottom side. That way it grips onto the door. Now, you want to find the shape you want that will be fit underneath the door and be able to do a stopper action like a regular stopper. So you don't want, if you've got a door that sits up this high, which I don't, my door only sits up about this high. So when this slips in, it'll slide right to about there or even up to here. But it won't go any further. And as you can see, there's a bump there, and then it raises up right there. So it won't go any further than that. So that's what you want to find, something that will allow you for that. And then you want to make good, thick edges. As you can see, the center of this is kind of hollow. If you can see. The center of that is kind of hollow. I'll stick my finger in so you can see. And then the edges are built up, so that the edges are thick enough, see, that they're not going to bend. That way you're not using gobs and gobs and gobs of hot glue. You just need enough to make it stable. So we're going to pause you and get this taken apart. Okay, just to let you know, I screwed up. But this is still salvageable. I just need to heat the plastic up out here just a little bit to pull this up. So, what I did this time is I put cooking oil in it before I started the hot glue part. And then I refilled it like I did the other one. And now I just need to make sure I get the edges off here. You can use either an X-Acto knife, or like in my case, when you got nails like that, your nail to run along the edges like that, just to get the edges disconnected from it. And then just pull the plastic back like that. And run your finger up underneath the thin nose piece. There we go. See how that popped out of there? Now, you're going to want to take your scissors, and you see these edges like this? Just snip those back. Now, I am not going to pause on this next part because you're going to want to see how I do it. And you're not going to be able to see completely how I do it if I pause and restart and pause and restart. I'll only pause if I absolutely have to. But we're going to make hot glue roses. Now I'm going to try to tilt this down a little bit so that I can put my pan up where you can see. This is my pan. It is a non-stick surface. This surface. No. Okay, guys, I kind of plunked a button. I didn't want to plunk. So I got to get you back. I didn't want Hulu. So I got to get you back. Turn that back on, and it should go right back to the computer. No, not Hulu. Okay. There's my computer. Sorry about that, people. I gotta move my keyboard so it's not in the way. Okay. Now, as I said, this is a non-stick pan. Okay, it's what I use for doing what I'm doing now. I set it so you can see very well out of that. And here's my piece that I just pulled off. That's going to be my doorstop. That's the piece I just pulled off. That's going to end up being my doorstop. Now I'm going to make a rose to go on that. You need your cup of water. You need your hot glue. And what you're going to do is you're just going to squeeze a circular glob of hot glue out. Stick your finger in the water and just spread out. Now you got to be careful when you do this how hot the glue is. There we go. Spread out the hot glue as flat and thin as you can get it. And while it's still semi-warm, what you want to do is come up underneath of it and just pull the hot glue up like this. And then you're going to want to take the first piece, and you can go either way you want to go, and spin it around like that so it makes like a little cone. And what I do with that is I take just a drop of hot glue in the center and let that just drip down into there, and then a drop on the bottom, and that will hold that little piece just like it is, and it'll hold on to it. Now if you want the petal to fold out, just barely lay your hot glue gun after it's cooled, and do it like I'm doing it now, because or else you won't hold together properly. Wait until it's cooled. And just hang on to it. Okay. Now she's cooled. She'll hold together. Grab your gun like so. Take this part, lay it on here, and just pull back a little bit. And don't let it get too hot. Because if you do, you're just going to ruin what you just made. Just make it soft, not too hot. And just, I used my mouth, I know. Pull back a little bit on the tip of the petal, like that. And that will give you see how that's curved over? Give you the curve you need for the back of your petal. Now, you want to make the next petal the same way. You just put a glob of hot glue. Let it set for a second to cool down just a touch. And then you just put your finger into the water. If it's too hot, it'll just keep on sticking to your finger. So you want to get it so that, there you go. You see? And then just pull out your leaf, your petal again. And just make it into it doesn't matter if the edges are even or crooked or whatever it is. Doesn't matter. And then you take your blade again, slide it up underneath, pull it up, and there's your second petal. And you do with your second petal, here's where the part is that you folded together. Take the second petal and put it onto it like this, and you take your hot glue and you glue it onto the back side. Just take a dab of glue and glue it on there. And then, because this is so thin, you can wrap it around, and that glue you put on the back side will go squish to the front side. And you just hang on to that. And then if you want this way, it's a lot easier because you're hanging on to a bigger surface. So you can just keep that back part up again, like you did the other one. And just pull this back, and be very careful when you do that. Because like I said, if you melt it too much, you're just going to have the petal break. And you don't want the petal to break. Okay? Now you can start hanging on to this until it cools so that the petal stays on good. Start your next one. I'm going to blow that a little bit. The last time when I started the petal, it was way too hot. And it tried to stick to it. What it does is it evaporates the water, and then it'll stick to you instead of you being able to flatten it out. You don't want it to, it won't burn you, it'll feel warm, but it will evaporate the water, and so you can't flatten it out like that. Pull it up again. Now, the first two I put on there pretty tightly, if you can see how tight those two are put together. Now the next one, I'm going to try to do a little looser. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to come, okay, let me get it over here. Okay, here's my second petal right here, and it comes from there to there. I'm going to put my next petal starting here and wrap around the gap where the second petal is. So about a third way back on the second petal is what I'm going to want to be. So instead of going a third way back, I'm going to go to the center of about where that petal is going to be. And I'm going to put a dot of glue because, like I said, I want this one on looser. So I'm going to put this on so that it comes out about like so. Okay? So you can see it's right there. And then I'm going to pull back on it a little bit and pull the sides around and let it stick. And that brings my petal out more. You see how the petal comes out more on that? See how that comes out a little bit more? See? Let me see if I can focus you in a little bit better. There. You see how the petal comes out a little bit further on that and because of that? See? Now we're going to do our next petal. We're going to hang on to this so that the glue hardens. And we're going to put another glob up there. Blow on it a little so it cools down just a tad. Pull the glob out into the shape I want it. Just flatten it out. And we're going to do the same thing with this one that we did with the third petal. And that's so that the petals hang out further. Otherwise you have them all way too close in and then the rows don't turn out right. So you're going to want to figure out where you want your petal. Now on this one, I'm going to want it to come back a third of the distance of the edge, this edge right here of the rose petal. Oh, the light in this camera is horrible. This edge right here, you want to go about the third of the distance of what the whole width of the rose is. But when you put your glue, you want to put it just down at the bottom where that edge is and put the center of your petal in there. So you want to put your glue right there, just a little dot of it right there. You want to figure out which direction you want the petal in. Put the center of your petal in it and push it so it pulls around and then pull back on the top like this so that that comes down. There you go, and there's your fourth little petal. And then you'll make your fifth petal. Put another glob up there. Now, depending how big you want your petals is how big you put your glob. And how many petals you want on there depends on that too. Blow that a little bit so it cools it. Stretch out your petal once again. Now this one's going to be a bit of a bigger petal. Now, if you do like I'm doing, where I'm not touching the bottom as much, and I'm just coming around the edge, that will automatically, pretty much so, curve your petal for you. Now I'm going to do like I did with the other two. Get this down here. Now stop sticking to me, you goofball. I gotta get that. There we go. Now it'll stop sticking to me. And now you can see even clearer how that is curved already. You want to stick your blob of glue right at the edge of the other petal. And then take your flattest portion of that, stick it on there, pull it around, and pull down. Okay. Now, you see the glue didn't come around here because it had that lip. So if you want it to attach there, you could leave it. You could leave this just like that with that little glitch there. But I don't want to, so I'm going to take and put just a tiny dot of glue right there. And I'm going to pull it around. And just hold it where I want it. I don't want it completely smack dab up to this side of the rose. But you can see I pulled it in a little bit. So that it gives some bit of a closure. I didn't want the gap that far open. Because that was a pretty big gap in there. And then that closes. Let's see if I can get some of this light off of that. There. That closes your gap up a little bit there. Okay. Now this side has got a decent size. You see how big that gap is? So I am going to do the same thing over here. And it just has to be a teeny tiny little drop of hot glue there. And then just pull it up a little bit. And hold on to it until it cools. And then that glue will hold that petal right where you want it. And there you go. Now, depending how symmetrical you want your rose to be, on how you place them, how many petals you put on. I'm going to put one more petal on because I don't like this big gap on this side that I've got there. So I'm going to put one more petal on. I'm going to take my glue, squeeze it out, blow on it a little bit, take my wet finger. Now you see what happened there? That's because the glue was still just a touch too hot. And that's what happens. It kind of, because you don't want your finger real wet. You just want to make it good and damp. So that the glue can't stick to your finger, but that it doesn't like soak your petal. Okay, so I've got that where I want. Now I'm going to start from this side, come up around the top, because that's where I like my curve at, and go only to the edge of the other side, and then come back and do it again, and just keep on doing that, going to the edge until I've got the whole thing. There we go. And then you see, like I said before, it gives you the curve to your petal. If I lay this petal down, you can see it's got a curve to it. Now with this one, I'm going to put my hot glue. Let's see if I can show this to you. I'm going to put my hot glue right where the two creases are here. That way, the center of the petal sits right there, and it will fold over to where I want it. Put a dollop of hot glue right there. And then just take my petal, put it so the top goes up as high as I want it. And remember, when you're sticking it on, pull it back so that when the glue comes up in there, it forces those edges up, but it forces this back part to go down where you want it. There you go. And see, that's what you get right there. You see how that's pretty little rose? Now, you're ready to connect it to the back side of your door stopper. Put a glob of glue on it, and just take your rose and put it where you want it. Let that harden. Now, there's your door stopper. It's got a rose on it, and you can paint it when you're done whatever color you want to paint it. Okay? Now, to make your leaves, it's basically the same way, except for you put your glob of a big glob back here, and then you just draw a line out like that. And then you flatten it out and pull up on the top a little bit and just keep on flattening it out. Now the problem with this one is sometimes this front part don't want to go where you want it to. So you can do one of two things. You can take the tip and run it along the side, get your point, whatever. But I find a lot of times that ends up leaving you with, how can I say this, kind of a male dangly part up on the front. And it looks like the backside of the male dangly part back here. So y'all really don't want that. Now you got one of two choices. You can just take a very thin amount of hot glue and put it to one side. Take your finger and then push this up onto your leaf like that. And that will straighten out the side so you won't have that nail part looking thing. Or you can take your thing and just slice down like this, your blade, slice down like that, pull back, slice down like that, and pull back. And I like doing it this way because it gives you more of a control over the tip. And I've got to move that water before I knock it off of there. But that'll give you more of a control of having a pointed tip to your leaf so that you can pull it up. When you pull it up, you want to go from the front and just let it roll up just like that. Just let it roll up like that, which will give you a little bit of a curve to your leaf. And now you're done with your leaf, and that's a little leaf. And you just take your hot glue gun. Now, the warmer this is when you pull it up, the more of a curve you'll get to the leaf. So depending how much curve you want to your leaf, and you can color this part here whatever you want to color it before you attach the roses. But don't put too thick of a coat of paint up on this part, or else the hot glue won't stick properly. So you just take a little dot of hot glue in the back there. And then you stick your leaf into it. And you hold on to the leaf where you want it to hang. And then you've got your leaf to your rose. Now I'm going to make several leaves for this. As I said, you take your glue, you put your big glob there, and you just come out into a tip. Wet your finger, cool it just a touch. And then, yep, that tip was still quite hot. That's still quite hot. Wet your finger again. There we go. Now, I'm pushing outward on that part, so I don't have so much of a male genitalia look to it. So, and then, like I said, you got that edge you don't like, just cut that down, and then come over here and cut a little bit so you get the point of it. And since this one is still a little bit warmer, hopefully, I can show you how to curve it a little bit more than the other one was. You see how much more that one is curved? You see? Now you want that curved part to be the bottom part of it, like that. And once again, you want to look at your rose, and I want this leaf to go right in the front here. So I'm going to put a dab of glue, take my leaf, shove it in there, cool it off, let it cool so it'll be stable. And there it is, stable. Now I've done a couple of roses on another piece. And I will grab that. Now pause you for a minute and grab that and show you what it looks like painted. Okay, here it is. Now this is one I put on an egg, and the roses are now painted. And you see how those turned out? So depending how you want to paint them, how you want them to look, and there's your leaves. And the leaves do, the light does kind of shine through these. So I put silver on here so it makes it more sparkly. So there's what the rose would kind of look like when you're done painting it. You see how thin those leaves are? And how thin those petals are? And that's what you would end up with. And that's what this will end up looking like when I'm done. So, I'm going to paint the doorstop and let you see. And now one thing I will not do, I'm not going to paint this bottom surface. Because then that's going to end up rubbing off on the floor quite frequently. And you don't want it to do that. So you're going to want to be able to, and if you're afraid with the door stopper being like this, if this is going to be hit by the door, then don't put a leaf there. Just put your leaf on the back and on the sides. Or, let's see if I can get this off of here, and I don't think I can, but we will try for you people. Anything for you people. If you're going to try to get them off, you're going to want to go to the base of the leaf and use your X-Acto knife to just push up underneath the base so that you can reuse the leaf, but don't get too close to the flower so that you end up taking a petal out. Just get up underneath the base there, kind of pry it up a little bit, see if it'll come off. These are not easy to take off. And then go up on the top, and along the top edge, push down. So basically what you're doing is cutting a wedge in there where the leaf is, so that it loosens up that leaf. And get back underneath on the bottom side. Push your thing in. And then on the top side, push your thing along the top of the leaf, pushing down. And then it should sooner or later pop out. Just like that. See, it popped out. Now there's going to be a little bit missing on there. And then you can bring it back and reposition it. Now let's say I'm going to reposition it instead of to the back, just to the edge of the back, right here. And then just put it on there, just like that. And then hold it until it cools. And there you go. And that's how you make a doorstop with the rose on it. Now, I am not going to be able to show you how the doorstop works because this camera won't disconnect and be able to go over to the door when I do it. But I'll tell you how it works when I'm done. But that will give you where your door, when it opens, will hit on this. And say this pin is your door, and it's normally sits off the floor about like so. This will come in, and you see where it starts to hit? That will make it so that it hits your door there, and your door can't come out. And as I said, if you've got a wider gap in your door, this part of it, you're going to want to make it so it slopes higher like this. So it slopes up above that. And then put whatever decoration or whatever you want on the top. I showed you how to do a rose so that you can make your own handmade decoration. But you can get, like if you have a little like goat or a dog or whatever, and you can hot glue that onto this, you know, one of those plastic ones onto this, and then have that on your stopper. My suggestion is do not put anything glass on your stopper, because if it gets kicked around or whatever, it might break, and then the shards that are left will be dangerous to pets, to children, and even to yourself if you did not realize you broke it, and then you step on it, and you end up with a glass piece stabbing up into your feet. It will not be fun. So I'm going to pause you, and see with this hot glue idea here, if you accidentally step on this, you might ruin the rose, but you're not going to ruin your feet. So I'm going to pause this, and I'm going to paint it, and then I'll show it to you. Okay. I'm almost done painting this. Now I'm turned it back on so that I could show you. I paint the inside of the flower in the vermilion that I wanted. And then when I come out to the outside, what I do is I load my brush up and I brush it along the edges like this. You see how I'm doing that? The edges, just like that. Now it's not showing too well. And then just let it load up and roll on the edge of the flower. and then I just pull it out a little bit. So you just roll it up on the edges and let it roll on the edge of the flower, and then just tickle it, pulling it out a little bit. And then you end up with something that looks like that. This is gold and vermilion. And my brown wasn't dry enough yet, so my fingers are all brown. So that's the start. Okay. There you go. Now your piece is done. You've got a pretty little rose stopper that you made yourself. And you can use the technique for making these roses with hot glue for many different arts. As you've seen, I showed you the egg that I made. You can use it for doing something like that. You can use it to put one of these roses on even say a pair of tennis shoes in a location that you know that it's not gonna be bumped into a lot. These might be fairly sturdy. I do not know. I've just figured out how to make the roses on this in the last couple of days, so I don't know how sturdy they would be if you put them on, say, the top of your shoe and then you bumped into it. But it would probably work pretty good on something like, say, a hair tie or a clutch or something like that. You know, something like a purse or a bag. Because they are, I will show you on this other one if I can get the color off my hand, because I do not want to ruin my egg. That's what it took me 5 hours to make. Okay. Now, I've got a hold of this. Now you see how sturdy those are? They bend, but they don't break. You see, I can push on them. They're fairly sturdy. They will bend a little bit, but from what I've seen so far, they don't break. So, I think it would depend on how much glue you put in between each petal. Because like this one up here has more glue than them down there. And this one, I swear you could probably sit a coffee cup on it and it would not break. So it all depends on how much glue you use to fasten the petals to each other. Like this one's fastened fairly loosely and it does have some give. But like I said, they bend, but they do not break. So they would probably work nicely on a purse or on a headband or a little high. You could do something like this along the top of the headband and then paint your roses for a little girl to match her favorite dress. You could do this for a little girl on a little purse that she has to match her favorite dress. You could make her headband, her purse, and her shoes all match in the colors a school, say, wants the children to wear a certain color for like a school concert. You could make her headband, her purse, or a brooch, or her shoes all match. And then have her go to school with these nice little roses like this. And have the roses painted in the school colors. That way she has a rose on her headband. She has a group of roses in her school colors. She can have the school colors on her shoes. She can have it on her belt. You know, whatever you want to do with it. You can do it with your stuff as well when you're going out. Make yourself match that way. So that's a good suggestion for you guys. It might be a good one for you. It might be a bad one for you. But it is a suggestion, but it does show you how to make these roses so that you end up with a pretty little rose. And maybe you could find things you could put it on. Now do remember, anything you put it on, because these are made from hot glue, you get too much heat near them and they will melt. So remember that. Where you want to put them is on something that it's not going to get real hot to where the glue melts and then either your rose falls apart or your rose melts apart. You want to put it somewhere where it'll stay fairly cool. You know, a headband might be alright unless the person is going to be out in the hot sun all day long with that hot sun beating on that headband, heating that headband up. Then you don't want it on the headband. It'll be okay on a purse as long as you're not going to lay your purse out in the sun or on a heater or next to a stove. Those are the things you're going to have to think about when you're making hot glue roses like